sky's not blue.
You need to understand that when the time comes, I'm going to be taking over.
Welcome back to the Cult House Podcast. I'm your host, the Scholar of Spite and the Saturday Night Delight, Roger Riddell. Joining me today, he is the frontman of Murderdolls, Frankenstein Drag Queens, Bourbon Crow, and his solo act. All he wanted for Christmas was a custom fit casket with a black velvet interior and a bucket of chicken. He is Wednesday 13. How you doing today, Wednesday?
I'm doing great. I liked your intro. You had like a long introduction for your name. I'm the Duke of Spook. I'm the I got to learn it. I got to get a Ric Flair speech going with it. But yes, I'm here. It is 2022 and it's time to get back on the road and make noise.
Yeah, you guys are about to do your first headline tour in 4 years. It's 20 years of fear, right?
Yeah, it's it's our first tour in 2 years period, just because of all the madness. But it's our first headline tour in 4 years. We've been out the 2 years before the pandemic hit. We were going out and doing a lot of support acts and doing gigs with like Cradle of Filth and just trying to get us in front of different bands, or different audiences. And so yeah, whenever the pandemic hit and you know, it knocked everything out, and when it's time to get everything going again, we're going to do a tour. What are you going to do? I'm like, fuck, it's been 2 years now. It's been 20 years since this year's the 20-year anniversary when the Murderdolls first album came out. So I thought, what a better way to go back on the road, play the songs everybody wants to hear. It's 20 years. Let's go out and celebrate.
Yeah, and last year was also the 25th anniversary of Frankenstein Drag Queen's Late 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 Show, right?
If you say so. I didn't realize. Probably, yeah. That the Late 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 Show came out in 1996. So I'm not sure what month it came out, or we weren't on a label. We just kind of like ordered the CDs and they showed up at my dad's house. So, all right, the album release here in the garage.
Yeah, I mean, I grabbed this back in 2005 when it came out, and it's a nice little collection of all the Frankenstein Drag Queen stuff.
Yes, man, that was a very cool thing, and it was something that was offered to me. Like, I didn't go to a label and go, "Hey, you guys want to put this Frankenstein Drag Queen stuff out?" It was literally they came to us and said, "You got a lot of stuff here. It'd be really cool to put it in a box set." And I'm like, I'm 28 years old when this was being talked about. I'm like, man, I want to have a box set out by the time I'm 30. Let's do it. Now I'm 45. Now it's time for the giant box set, a big casket.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about that box set was that my introduction to you was through the first Murderdolls album. Because I was a big Slipknot fan, and I heard, you know, Joey was putting out the side project and it was the Murderdolls, and it was like a totally different vibe. And so I checked that out and immediately dug that. And then it was interesting going back when the Frankenstein Drag Queens box set came out a few years later, and just kind of seeing how what you had done with FDQ evolved into what you all did with the Murderdolls.
Yeah, it was, you know, that was one of the things I tell people a lot, like that I was very fortunate, you know, because again, I look back, I'm a music fan. I've watched my favorite bands, you know, do side projects, and you always hope things are going to be good. And or you would see someone like when Nikki Sixx did Brides of Destruction, he had a couple of guys, you know, he had a unknown front guy that really didn't, even though I knew who the guy was, he didn't really have like a back history as far as like albums and things like that. So when Joey had put Murderdolls together, I had 6 Frankenstein Drag Queen albums under my belt, and we were playing a majority of those songs with Murderdolls. So by the time it all kind of came, you know, everyone started discovering Murderdolls, and they went, well, where'd this guy come from? Frankenstein Drag Queens. And they could go to Europe or wherever, and there's just hundreds of CDs right in the same Murderdolls bin. So it helped me out, but it also established me as not just being the unknown guy that came in as Joey's friend. You know what I mean? Like that literally saved my life by kind of having those records out before then. So it established me as not just the Slipknot hangout guy.
Yeah, an interesting thing that I had never known until a few months ago was I had talked to AC Slade, and he had told me that around that time, you had also, kind of been in talks to join Dope when they were recording the Life album. What all was like going on around that time, and how did you end up getting ultimately linked up with Joey to do the Murderdolls?
It's a weird thing. I never had any auditions for Dope. Probably what AC was talking about was when Dope was doing their second record. I had became friends with Trip and AC just because we had some mutual friends back in Philadelphia, and I used to trade horror movie commercials and toy commercials with Trip. And AC was a big rock and roll fan. He had his band Vampire Love Dolls, which Frankenstein drag queens had met years and years ago. It's such a long, crazy story. But either way, I kept in touch with AC and I kept in touch with Trip. And then Trip joined Static X. AC was still with Dope. And Dope had came through on, I think, on their second record. And I went and picked AC up. We went to Applebee's or something to hang out. And I'm like, hey, what's going on with, this is our new record and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, hey, I got a call from Joey Jordison and we're going to do this Murderdolls thing with Trip. And he's like, oh, that's great. That's great. And then a few months go down, Trip has to commit to Static X. We don't have a guitarist. I call up AC. AC's like, Dope just got dropped from their label. And I'm like, well, we're playing with Hanoi Rocks in Japan in 2 weeks. That's all I'm going to say. And it was that, I think those were the words that he went, I'm there. And so AC kind of came in literally last minute. We had 5 days to rehearse, or not even probably 5 days, 3 days to rehearse and then go out and go on tour. And that's when that was just 1 year of just amazing madness.
Yeah, and speaking of AC, I just want to throw in a quick plug that I'm also drinking the Murderdolls coffee that his company Catfight has put out. What's it like knowing that there's still that much interest in the Murderdolls after all these years that, like something like a coffee can be put out like that?
It's great. I mean, you can see around me, I'm a collector of merchandise. This is all horror movie and merchandise and stuff. And growing up idolizing Kiss and being able to have Kiss dolls and a lunchbox and this, I've always went, man, if one day if I could do something close to that, man, I would get action figures, I would get lunchboxes, I would get this and that. And being our history of the band has kept this little cult following, and we're able to do those kind of things. We're able to put out a coffee or put out a or whatever. So it's a cool thing for me. It's just I love looking at all the accomplishments and all the list of things that I've been able to do, just being in basically a 3-chord rock and roll band that sings about monsters and beating people up.
Yeah, and speaking of Kiss, as a fellow Kiss fan, one of the things I've always admired a lot about that band is that they pretty much pioneered that merchandising model.
Oh yeah, they're the best. And I know people give them shit for it, but and I probably am going, what are you doing, Kiss? But if you looked, I have been a sucker for buying everything from Kiss pajamas. I had the entire outfits. I'm a nerd for it. My wife doesn't get it. She doesn't like Kiss. She never really got it because she's younger than me. I'm like, you just don't understand. Kiss was, regardless of how long this farewell tour goes on and they keep doing their thing, Kiss back in the day was like, they were superheroes, and they will always be in that superhero mindset to me. They were just beyond touch. They were the ones, and they delivered everything. And I don't know, it was just one of those things. If and you grew up on it, how magical that was.
Yeah, like even as ridiculous as they've become at times,
Yes.
It's still just those early albums in particular are still just pretty untouchable as far as like 70s rock goes.
Absolutely. I can tell you that anytime that we've been on tour and say we've been out for 2 or 3 weeks and we're getting winded and we're like, oh man, this sucks, or we had a bad day or whatever, we can always put on Rock and Roll Over and you just see this mood change. So it's been a healing thing too. Like Kiss is just, like I said, you had to grow up on it to really understand the what that was like. I mean, and seeing Gene Simmons, you hear Gene Simmons talk now is one thing, but to see Gene Simmons come out on that talk show back in like 72, I forget the name of the talk show, where he comes out and he's just in full character. I mean, that was scary. That was so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your if you had to pick out of any of like the most ridiculous things that they've done, what's probably like stands out in your mind as like your favorite?
Ridiculous. They did pretty much everything. I don't know what the most ridiculous thing they've done. I think probably the most ridiculous thing they've done was take their makeup off. And then, I mean, I understood they had to do that, but I would say that was the most ridiculous move, because everybody went from seeing, like I was just explaining, Gene Simmons coming out on, he was, I'm evil incarnate, and then all of a sudden, here comes was it Lick It Up? This was the first video or whatever.
Yeah.
And they're just walking and Gene looks like an old Jewish lady.
I've always loved
just,
the casket that they put out.
yeah, but you know what? Again, I'm such a nerd. I want one. I just want one in my room here. I would probably sleep in it. I would probably put some toys in it. But yeah, a ridiculous move. But I would say the most ridiculous would probably just be Gene. The one thing Gene did, if Gene could have came out looking like he did on the Revenge tour, when they took the makeup off, he might have looked a little tougher. But he looked kind of like Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, I think Revenge is probably, out of all of their Unmasked albums, the best and the most underrated.
100%. What a cool song. Unholy is such a great song. It's just a riff, and it's just like, whoa. So it was a new era. That was my first time ever seeing Kiss, was on the Revenge tour. So yeah, man, that was just huge.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ric Flair at the beginning. I know you're from North Carolina. Are you like an old school Mid-Atlantic wrestling guy?
Yeah, I mean, wrestling and NASCAR has been it's just in the air there. It's just, like I'm from the town that is basically Dale Earnhardt's town. Like whenever he passed away, I mean, it was as if the president had been shot. Like it was just sadness, I mean, and Ric Flair, all the wrestling stuff, Ricky Steamboat, it just seemed like it was just constantly in there, and my first impression of wrestling, my earliest memory of meeting my grandfather, who passed away when I was like in 1983. So it was so old, but I remember, so I'm like 6 years old or whatever. And I was going to his house and I remember walking in and he's watching a Ric Flair match. And he is so upset about it. And he is just like, oh, I'm like, what are you watching? I'm like, what is this? Just watching my grandfather's reaction. And I remember him saying, I hope they kill that white-haired son of a bitch. And he was dead serious. Because Ric Flair would go out and that was his job, to get all the guys mad and all the ladies screaming for him. So that was kind of my first introduction to Ric Flair and wrestling. And then it was just, it was, like I said, it was part of, you couldn't get away from it. You knew all the wrestlers and stuff. I remember going to see No Holds Barred the first day it came out at the theater, like when that was a big deal. Man, wrestling's got a movie now. So yeah, I remember even going to like a Big Lots one year, and Nikita Koloff was in there signing autographs. Like just all the wrestlers just kind of were there. So NASCAR and pro wrestling was what I grew up on.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up outside of Louisville, so that was back in the day, before my time, like the Memphis territory, Mid-South,
Right.
all of that. And around the time that I was in middle school, in the late 90s, early 2000s, Jim Cornette was running Ohio Valley Wrestling as like the developmental territory for WWE. So I actually got to see like John Cena and Batista, Randy Orton before they were ever big. And the thing that
Oh,
always
wow.
sticks out to me the most from that period was at one of the events that I went to, Batista at the time was Leviathan, the demon of the deep. And
Right.
he like locked eyes with me while he was walking to the ring and told me if I didn't stop staring at him, he was going to eat me.
Wow. You know, I mean, I know that feeling, like to be at a like a smaller wrestling thing. Like me and my friends, and when I still lived in North Carolina, they would have just local wrestling things on the weekend. And me and my friend would just go there and just get drunk and just yell at people. And we had so many people threaten to kill us from the ring. I mean, we had one wrestler look at us and he was like, "You're cut off." I'm like, "I'm not a bartender. Fuck you." So man, we always pulled for the heels. But yeah, I mean, I remember going to see Monday Nitro. I believe it was Monday Nitro. And it was Nitro whenever the NWO and all that came in, right? That was so long ago. I'm trying to remember, but I remember when the NWO had first just made their presence. I was at the live taping and they like came out of the rafters, and they were the first time you saw them, all the guys in black, and Hulk Hogan had that ridiculous black. And so
Around
yeah,
the time you had the toupee too, right?
yeah. So yeah, man, I grew up like it's a strange thing when I try to explain why I do what I do. I play shock rock horror music, but I grew up around NASCAR and wrestling and all that fun stuff. But all that's incorporated into what I do. I think some people, you probably hear it. You can hear the influence in there.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much kind of like a modern extension of what Alice Cooper did back in the day.
100%. He's been my rock and roll mentor and hero for years, and he still to this day impresses me with everything. With 2 years of all of the politics and pandemic, and everybody had to get on their soapbox and talk. Everyone from whoever, it seemed like everybody talked about it. But you know who didn't talk about it? Alice. He never does. And he never talks about religion. He's never shoving anything down anybody's throat unless it's a sword. So to me, Alice just continues to play the game right and do it right. And he's such an inspiration, like just watching his shows. I mean, he just, he's 74. He's a couple years younger than my dad, and he just comes out on stage and he commands it. He owns it. And I will continue ripping him off for as long as I can. But no, I mean, Alice is a big fan of what I do. He was on the last record and did the intro, and he's taken us out before. And so yeah, it's just crazy to have that guy on, being a poster on your wall, and you're just like, man, one day if I could just meet that guy. And then then he offers us to go on tour, then he sings on, and then he does the intro for the record. It's life's crazy.
Yeah, and along those lines too, I know that Necrophase was the first album that you had recorded sober. And I know that Alice, has been sober for many years. When you were going through getting sober and like recording sober and whatnot, did you have like any words of advice from him, or any sort of things like that?
No, not necessarily. Necrophase, now that I think about it, I think that might have been the second record that I was sober. And again, when I talk about, when I've said years ago that I got sober, basically I was just a very depressed person. I just drank. That's all I did. I wasn't doing, I've never ever tried any other drug. I know that's the most un-rock and roll thing to say, but like I didn't smoke weed till I was like 33. And I just went through a really bad depression thing, and I was just using booze to medicate that. And it just got to a point where I just felt sick, And then around 2018, I got it out of my system, and then we had to record the Necrophase record. And I didn't really even think about like, am I drunk or not, because I just did that all the time. Like I never went into the studio being like, hey, let's do this, like it was always a fully functioning, I was fully functioning alcoholic back then. But yeah, I mean, but when it does come time to look for inspiration, like when I quit drinking years and years ago. One time, one of my many steps of quitting, and Alice was one of my guys that would call in and check in on me. So he was kind of like my sober buddy. So it was weird to get a message from Alice going, "Hey, Wednesday, this is Alice, just checking on you, buddy." And I'm like, whoa. So yeah, he's always been, I always think about him, but yeah, the whole sober thing and recording, and I don't think I really even thought about it. I think if I would have thought about it, it probably would have threw me off. I mean, oh man, if something ain't right.
Yeah. I mean, I just speaking of Alice too, one of the things that always amazes me is the amount of energy that he has to this day, and also just the crazy like stories that there are, as far as like he used to just go sit with Groucho Marx and like tuck him in at night,
Yeah. He's told me stories of how he would go to Peter Sellers' house, the Pink Panther, and they would literally just be in character the entire time. Never ever caught each other. They would go and they'd play roles. And there's a photo I posted on Alice's birthday on my Instagram. If you look at, a lot of people don't know what it is because I don't ever explain it, but it's a picture of he and I, and we have fake mustaches drawn on. And that was a dinner I was invited to by Alice at this restaurant where it was all like 1930s gangster style, and you had to dress like that. And I didn't have any gangster really clothes, so I just had this leather jacket. I zipped it up real tight. I drew a little fake mustache on, and I slicked my hair back. And I'm like, man, I hope this works. And I walked in, and there's Alice with his hair slicked back and a little mustache drawn on, and he goes, Wednesday. And we just, the Godfather. It was like we literally played. Sounds like I'm making it up, but it's not. I was so if you see that photo of us with mustaches, that was the 1930s party. Yeah. Weird story. I just now thought about that so long ago.
Yeah, I always love hearing stories like that. And it seems like especially when Alice Cooper's involved, it's always they're like exciting stories, but they always have this kind of like wholesome energy to them. Like he's just kind of got like this like sweet grandpa vibe alongside his like horror aesthetic.
Great thing, just to keep talking about Alex, there's such funny stories talking about how the wholesomeness and the grandpa kind of vibe. There was one year, just because I'm really good, really close with him and his whole family and stuff. And there was one year I was living out in California, and I was actually staying in one of his houses he let me stay in. And so I got invited to go out with the family and go to dinner. He took everybody to the movies, and we went and seen MacGruber. Have you seen MacGruber?
Not yet.
Okay, well, you need to see this movie. MacGruber's the Saturday Night Live parody of the MacGyver kind of thing. So we didn't know. We were like, all right, he loves to go to the movies, so he took the whole family, and it's like everybody. I mean, there's probably 15 people, and we're sitting. And there's one scene in this movie where the guy is in a graveyard completely naked, and he's fucking a ghost. And there's nobody there. He's just going, I'm going to shoot. I'm going to shoot. I'm going to shoot. And Alice is just, he's there. And there's all of his relatives. Like, it was so embarrassing. And I'm just sitting there as a guest going, I can't believe that I'm watching this. I mean, there was like little kids. And he's like, I'm going to shoot. So watch that and you'll see. But that was the weirdest thing ever.
I'm not gonna be able to watch that now without thinking about Alice Cooper.
Yeah. I think he just looked over. It's like, well, you picked the right movie.
Yeah. To circle back to Necrophase, that was I think a really like it was a really good consistent album. Like I really enjoyed that one a lot. And one of the things that I liked a lot about it as well was some of the promotion for it, especially the Necroflakes ad that you all put out.
Yeah, that was my second term or second record with Nuclear Blast. And the first with Condolences, when I went in, they were like, they basically have like a budget of certain things. They go, okay, well, we're going to do what we do for a new artist. We'll have them come in and we'll interview them, and they would interview me for like 2 hours, and they'd break it up into parts, kind of like you're asking me questions, and every week it'd be, oh, well, here's Wednesday's album inspirations, or here's this and this and this. And I'm like, and that turned out cool, but at the same time, it was not much more information that you would get. Like you and I could talk about the same thing. So when it came time to do the Necrophase stuff, I'm like, I don't want to sit in front of a green screen and talk about my favorite records. Why don't we use this promotion money for that and let's do a commercial. And I was like, let's do a cereal commercial. And they went, okay. I was like, all right. I'm like, and why don't we do like a movie trailer? So let's reenact the Zodiac thing. I love that scene where he stabs the victims right in front of the lake. Okay. So we took basically that little bit of money that we would use for your basic promotion and did all of those videos. And I thought that was a way cooler thing to do, because you're going to keep doing, like, every time a record comes out, you're going to do press, you're going to do podcasts. And I'm like, we get all that stuff done with this. So why not use the good stuff and make something unique? So now when I look back on that record, which is 2 years old now, I can see the Zodiac trailer. I can see the Necroflakes commercial. I can see, it's just, I love the way that all turned out. And I haven't seen any other bands do that type of thing. So I'm always trying to think outside the bun.
Yeah. And was there any talk of like actually trying to do a limited run of like Necroflake cereal?
Yes. We had the box printed, and the box looks great. I still have the thing from the commercial. We had looked at actually getting it, and then my brain started going, man, what if we get a bad batch and somebody dies? That's gonna be the story of my life. I fucking killed somebody with some horrible cereal. So the only thing we really kind of came with at one point, but like I said, when the pandemic hit, that record was pretty much done as everybody else's music thing. But we had ideas of making a t-shirt pack or something, or a box set that came in the Necroflakes thing. So I wanted to at least get the imagery of that stuff out. But the cool thing, I don't know, during the whole Necrophase album and everything, I got hooked up with a toy company. A good friend of mine, a good friend now, a guy named John, who runs a company called Horrorbiz Toys. He started making action figures and everything. So I have like 7 or 8 limited Wednesday 13 action figures. We made Wednesday 13 Necro slime with worms inside of it. We did a glow in the dark butcher knife that I used on stage. So we had a whole ton of toys and everything. So that whole Necroflakes thing inspired all of that. We just didn't get to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be cool though, knowing that you actually kind of like hit that point where you had the kind of merchandise that Kiss would put out.
100%. Yeah, I was trying to go an extra mile and be like, I don't think Kiss had slime, so let's make slime. No.
Yeah, and out of the actual like General Mills Monster cereals, which one was always your favorite?
It's weird. I don't like marshmallows, so I never really ate any of the cereal, but I would be always staring at the boxes going, man, I wish I liked this. But I'm a big fan of Frankenberry. He's just what a weird, a pink Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Just bizarre, but I did like all the characters, even the one that doesn't, from the 70s, the Fruit Brute was one a lot of people don't know about. Yeah, it could be a future tattoo. I don't eat the cereal, but I would definitely get their images on me.
Yeah, and my favorite story about those cereals to this day is still the original batches of Frankenberry had a red dye in it that turned a bunch of kids' poop like neon pink and just freaked their parents out. So there's an actual medical condition for it now called Frankenberry stool.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know. I did not know this. Wow. I got a Frankenberry toy back there somewhere in all those hundreds of figures and stuff back there.
Yeah, and so you've got a new album that you're working on for the fall, right?
Yes. Our scheduled date right now for our new record, we moved to Napalm Records. We finished our time with like we're in prison. We finished our time with Nuclear Blast. So now we're moving on to the next explosive label, Napalm. I don't know why it's nuclear and napalm. But yeah, this will be our first album on Napalm. We started tracking it right around Thanksgiving last year, but I've been writing off and on for the 2 years we were off, and I think I probably wrote 3 albums worth of stuff, but I think I only liked an album worth of it. Like I kept restarting. Like I wrote a bunch of songs that I liked, and I went, no, I'm doing a different direction. Then I wrote a whole other batch of songs, then a whole other batch of songs, and then when we got together to work on it, we all liked the first songs that I wrote first. So those came back, and so yeah, I'm actually we leave for tour in like 5 days, and I have 3 little vocal things I have to finish on the record. I'm recording it in my home. That's why I've got this microphone set up here. I've been tracking vocals here over the last couple months and doing it myself instead of having some producer yelling at me. I get to do it all myself. So it's been weird kind of doing it ourselves, but having the freedom to do that has been great. And not traveling to a studio and driving an hour and a half and an hour and a half back, that's the worst thing. I know it doesn't sound like much, but it just sucks because you work all day in the studio and you just want to chill out. And so I was like, what can we do to make this record flow better? I'm like, I don't want to leave the house. So we recorded everything here. So yeah, it's turned out really, really, really good. And I feel like this, being this is the year, the 20 years of Fear, I feel like this couldn't be a better record representative of 20 years of what I've done. It's more of a fun rock record. I promised I wouldn't put out a mean, I hate the world record after the pandemic. I was like, I'm going to do something fun and cool and keep it going. It still kind of continues in the necro phase kind of vibe. It's still got a horror element to it. But I think this record may be a little closer to my earlier ones.
Yeah, so probably like Fang Bang, where it was a little bit more upbeat.
Yeah, well, Fang Bang that's the one. That's like my Sex Pistols record. I think this one's a little more like the Transylvania and the Skeletons record. It's fun, but it's got its dark moments in it too. But overall, I think it's just got more of a rock vibe as opposed to the metal vibe of the last 2 records. It's still very much me. You hear it and you go, oh, that's Wednesday. But I don't know. I feel like it kind of went back to the beginning a little bit with me. So that's some of the songs remind me of stuff off the first couple of records.
And after all these years, how have you kept your vocals in shape for so long? Because like they still sound just as good as they did, early on.
Thank you. It's a weird thing because I don't know how I do what I do. I don't know how I sound. I literally wanted to sound this way and I somehow did it. But to answer your question, like saying I sound better over the years, is I've actually kind of learned how to control what I do. So when I look back on my records and stuff, it wasn't up until maybe the Murderdolls record when I really started learning how to control what I do, because it would be a show where I'd come out and just go nuts. And then after the show, I'm like, I can't talk. What did I do? And I would so it's mainly just kind of learning to control what I do. And as I've gotten older, my voice has gotten deeper. So my strong thing back in the day was always able to hit these higher notes, almost the Bon Scott kind of thing. Now I can do that as good as I ever did, but also I got a low range that just developed over time. So I don't know. I just think over the years, my voice it's gotten stronger. Some people will say, oh man, that band back in the day, they were in their prime. I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing back then. Like there's a song on Transylvania where my voice is completely gone. That Buried by Christmas song.
Yeah.
I couldn't talk the way I'm talking right now. And yet I can hear it. Like I don't know. I guess I just over the years I've learned how to do it, and I've tried to get it where it's more powerful these days. I know what I can do, and I can get in the studio and do things I couldn't do before.
Yeah, because I know on Buried by Christmas, the spoken parts on that, you definitely kind of sound more like you're like croaking out the words.
Yeah, well, because I couldn't talk, and I didn't have any more time, so I'm like, well, you got to finish the studio today. I'm like, oh, all right, here we go, a bucket of chicken. Like it literally, my voice was gone. So those are the things I've improved on over the years, and I'm still not perfect. I still have shows where afterwards I can't speak really well, but I don't know, man. It's like a motor. I tell people all the time, like, don't you have to practice? I'm like, if we have a show day, one of my main things is once I wake up, I can't take naps or anything. It's like, it's an all day, like just keep referring. It's like an engine. I got to heat it up. And once I get on stage, it's full throttle, or sometimes not. But yeah, man, it's been a bizarre thing because I never really studied out how to be a vocalist. I was a guitar player in my band, and our lead singer didn't show up one day, so I went, "Fuck it, I'll do it." So that's how I became the vocalist, you know. But yeah, I've gotten better at it, and now here I am. You know, we're starting our first tour in a week, and I haven't been live and singing in 2 years. I'm nervous. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope it's good. I feel good. I've been working on the record and recording and singing for the past couple of months, and it feels strong. So fingers crossed I'll be able to come out there and kill it every night.
And there was a quote from you that I remember from like, I want to say it was like 2002 or 2003 in like Metal Edge, where you're talking about your approach to being a frontman, and how I think it was basically that you didn't want to be like bogged down by having a guitar on stage, because you wanted to be able to wield your mic stand like a battle axe, like old frontmen did in like the 80s.
Exactly. And that's why I don't play guitar anymore. I mean, I played guitar on the first 3 albums, and I can play. I don't think I'm great. I can play rhythm, but the thing that held me back was I was able to play and sing at the same time, but I feel like I was doing 50-50 on guitar and 50-50 on vocals. And I just needed, once I put that guitar down and I just concentrated on being a vocal, and Joey was a huge part of helping me with that on that second. I mean, you think about it, the second Murderdolls record, that was a year after or not even a year after I quit playing guitar. And our first shows are 2 weeks opening for Guns N' Roses. You know what I mean? So I had mentally, like, you got to step this up. You got to own this. Come out on that stage and fucking own it. You don't need a guitar. Go out and do that. And that's where I kind of learned doing that. So that was a big help. And I definitely having Joey beside of me cheering me on, going, fuck yeah, dude, you can do this. So that really kind of broke the ice of getting away from doing the guitar.
Yeah, and before Joey's untimely passing, had you all talked about recording a third Murderdolls album?
Joey, you know, it was weird because Joey's was a recluse. Like he was always, even on tour, like if you couldn't find him, he's always, you know, away. So no one had really talked to Joey in quite some time. And about a month before he passed, I literally just got a text just out of the blue from him, and it was him, and he's just giggling, and he's videoing Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Hitchhiker. he's just laughing, and he wrote, and he texted, and he was like, he goes, I woke up and this was on, and we just started quoting, like we all, like no time had ever passed. We're just quoting parts from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he was just like, he's like, and I said something about, I've got this knife. And he wrote, I've got this knife. He goes, we should write that. We have to write that on the next one. And I'm like, okay. So he always spoke about the next one, whether it was ever going to happen, he would say it was. And, but yeah, like a month before he passed, he texted me and he was like, Wednesday, I love you, brother. I love everything you do. I'm with you. Horns high, carry on. And it was just like, I don't know. He just wrote that. And then it was like 4 weeks later, I woke up and got the news. So yeah, Joey was like a brother to me. And it was really tough. It still is tough, think is because he's in my feed every day. When I get up and do my social media, I mean, there isn't every other picture is of him. So it's that's why this tour is really special, because we get to go out and play these songs, and people get a little release with that, because some people didn't, I didn't really get a chance to mourn over him, so I get to do it with my fans and my family, and that's what this tour is gonna be about. So we're not doing all Murderdolls songs or anything, but when we do the songs, they're definitely going to be for him.
Yeah, and I know when the second Murderdolls album came out, some of the videos that you all put on YouTube, the one that always stuck out to me was going back to the Texas Chainsaw quote. It was you all going back and forth like, I got this knife. It's a good knife.
Yeah, that was a great thing too. When we were recording the record, we're little kids, you put us in a house and we're gonna fuck with each other. We're like brothers, and so the guy that got the blunt of all that was our tour manager. We called him the Mad Manager, and so we just made this little series of videos. And so I got this knife was literally the very last day. Like, that dude had to be up like in an hour to go to the airport, and we hadn't even been to bed, so we're like, let's go fuck with him. So we're just standing over his bed. I got this knife. So, and a lot of people started thinking that we really didn't like that guy, but he was like one of our best friends. We just literally just were busting balls and constantly fucking with each other, and that's what made it so much fun.
Yeah, and I know that you're a big Motley Crue guy. Have you checked out Pam and Tommy?
I did watch. I think I may have. I don't know. I think it's like in episodes or whatever. I'm not sure if I watched one or two. I saw him talk to his dick. But one of those kind of shows. It's weird. Like, I mean, of course, I grew up on Motley Crue. I probably wouldn't look the way I do without Motley Crue. But when it came to, like, it's almost like Kiss. They're one of those bands where I grew up on. They had such an impact on me. Their social lives and what they kind of did or whatever. Like Tommy Lee, phenomenal drummer, huge part of Motley Crue, but he's never been like, man, I relate to Tommy Lee. You know what I mean? I'm just, I don't relate to Vince Neil. Mick, I know him a bit. I know Nikki. I relate more to those guys just on a musical level. But so I just try not to really, like, it's like Gene Simmons. I don't really care what he's doing right now. I don't care that Paul Stanley gets mad every 5 minutes online. I just remember the good stuff. So when I started watching the Pam and Tommy, and I went, you know what, I need to check out of this quick before I can't listen to Motley Crue without thinking about his dick.
So I ended up watching like the whole thing, and the thing that was interesting about it to me was that in the last like several episodes, the whole thing's supposed to be in '96, but in one of the last few episodes, Motley Crue is doing an event for the release of Generation Swine, and I don't think that came out till like '97 or '98. Like, they got to play Vince is still like really skinny, and he's still singing in like the 80s style Vince like vocal style. The guy that they got to do Nikki though was like spot on, and you never see the dude who played Mick up close. But right. It was like whoever they got to play Nikki and to do like the makeup and like hair and everything for him is kind of like when you see a caricature of someone that like looks a lot like them, but right. It's not them. And they even got the voice, the actor that did him got the voice down. But the last episode, they have them playing in a parking lot at a record store to promote the release of Generation Swine. And the song that they play is something that's written originally for the show. It's not even a Motley Crue song. And I was like, you couldn't have spent the money to get the rights for that.
That's crazy. I'm surprised they even talked about that, because they don't even talk about Generation Swine, I think, in The Dirt, do they? They blow over that in the John Corabi period. I thought in The Dirt, the way they portrayed John Corabi, the guy looked like Weird Al Yankovic that they had playing him. I'm like, I feel like that was a total stab toward him. It had to be like, let's get the most goofiest guy that doesn't look like him. But yeah, again, Motley Crue's story has just become such a soap opera. I just want to remember Shout at the Devil.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's they could have not done anything after like Dr. Feelgood, and I probably would have been happy. But
I think they would have been happy with that decision too. Because everything after that, I mean, I like the Corabi record, even though it does not sound like Motley Crue. And Tommy Lee's drumming on it is probably the best thing he's ever done. It's just a cool record. Didn't sound like Motley Crue, but I agree with you. It should have stopped with Dr. Feelgood, and they could have just took all that time off and come back and go on a forever tour.
yeah. I mean, that Corabi record, the thing about that's always kind of been in the back of my mind, like you said, it's a good album, but it just doesn't sound like Motley Crue.
No.
When I was growing up, there was a guy in my hometown who had a record store, and he was like an old metalhead guy. And I think he introduced me to like most of like the glam metal and like most of like the old school metal that I got into. And the thing that he told me once when I wanted to check that album out was go into it without thinking about the fact that it's Motley Crue, and imagine that it's just a different band with a different name, and you'll like it a lot more.
Yeah. Well, the thing I think that I was spoiled for me was that John Corabi had a band prior to that called The Scream, which I loved. And that was like my favorite record. And then when I heard he was joining Motley Crue, I'm like, hell yeah. So it sounded just like what I wanted. But again, it wasn't Motley Crue. And that's why it didn't do what it did. I even saw that concert. I saw that tour. I saw Typo Negative open up for Motley Crue. What a weird time. It was just a bizarre lineup. Typo Negative, King's X, and Motley Crue in front of about 1,500 people in a amphitheater, which is nobody. So, yeah, man, I've grew up with Motley Crue my whole life, but like I said, I still watch the stuff. But like the Pam and Tommy thing, I didn't make it through that part, but I did want to see how they portrayed the band. So I'm sure I'll catch the episodes you're talking about eventually.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about was you do a lot of or you've done a lot of like really excellent covers. So I've just kind of wondered what your approach is when you go to do a cover, and like what's the secret to doing one really well?
I don't know. Covers are scary. Like for example, like when we did White Wedding, that was the first like big cover thing that Murderdolls had did. And that idea came from like when Joey and I were talking about it, he goes, we should do a cover song. And I was like, my old band used to cover, we used to try to do White Wedding, and it was really cool. I used to wear a solid black witch's outfit and we'd play White Wedding, which I thought was weird. And I happened to have a VHS of it, and I brought it to his house and we put it in, and he was like, this is fucking awesome. And he sat there and kind of got the structure, even though we didn't have that song all together. And we went in the studio, and Joey kind of heard my idea of what I was doing, and then he put his mind with it, and then what you hear is what you hear with that. And it's for me, that was such a cool thing, because it sounds, I mean, obviously when you hear it, you know it's White Wedding, but it doesn't sound like it at first. It's not like instantly, oh, well, that's Billy Idol, until you start hearing the words. So I think it's cool to do a cover when you change it up, but not so much that it's not recognizable. So I guess what I'm saying is it just kind of comes down to luck sometimes. Whether, I mean, we've did covers before, and I'm like, this doesn't sound good, I don't want to record it. But if anything we've recorded, and you've heard, is because I liked it. I liked the way it turned out. So White Wedding turned out great. Devil Inside we did was another cool cover that just turned out way cooler than I thought. But my favorite cover that we've done was the Wasp, Fuck Like a Beast. I don't think we nailed that song. Like, it's perfect. And I remember one of the last conversations I had with Alexi before he passed, because Alexi does the lead on it and does the Fuck Like a Beast screams. when I contacted him and I was like, hey man, we're doing Wasp. I was like, you got to sing on this. I want you to do the screams and do the guitar. And he did it. He sent it back, and we talked on the phone. And Alexi's his awesome accent. He was like, it's like, yeah, Wednesday. It's like probably better than the original. And I was like, wow, you think so? He goes, it's pretty great, man. And I'm like, wow. And I just remember him saying that. And so that's one of those songs, like that's me and him, and just like we're such fans of Wasp, we wanted to knock it out of the park. And his guitar solo and it was just, that was such a cool thing. And it literally happened last minute. So that was the deal. I'd sang on a Children of Bodom record. I sang on a Plasmatic song. So he sang on that. And then right before he passed, he was wanting me to cover a Rat song with him for his new Bodom After Midnight. And he wanted to record Motherfucker See, Motherfucker Do from Murderdolls. And I was just like, really? And then I heard he passed away. So it was just a bizarre, just relationship and talking to these people and the cool things we've done and the plans we had ahead. Like who knows what would have happened. I mean, Alexi and I had talked about, me, Joey, and Alexi were going to do a band together. So imagine that.
Yeah, that would have been wild. And the Wasp cover I was actually going to bring up because as soon as I heard it, I was just like, this is the perfect modern update for this song.
Thank you. I agree. I love the original. I'm not saying it's better than the original, but I think we nailed it. We nailed the attitude of that, because it's like, I always wanted that song to be meaner. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to have a little more dirt on it. So we did that. And we stayed true to the original too. Like it's awesome. That's my favorite cover that so far that I've done.
Yeah, and so I've had you for about an hour now. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but is there anything else that you want to put out there?
Just check us out on our upcoming 20 Years of Fear tour. Starts March 23rd to May 5th. And then we will be at the Download Festival in the UK. We're got a nice slot there on the same day as like Korn and The Darkness, and then our new album will be out October 8th on Napalm Records, and you'll be seeing videos and cool things. Like I said, we'll be talking, maybe there'll be a new cereal commercial, who knows. But yeah, and we have a lot of stuff coming now that the world's opened back up. We're kind of coming out swinging. So just be on the lookout for us. We're not going away. We're like cockroaches.
And thanks again for your time, Wednesday.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. Nice chatting with you.